See, we're here in the Jim Thomas home in Crawford, Nebraska, and I got to tell you, it's the July 20 of 2021, and boy, is it good to be out of that COVID thing. Today's episode's been sponsored by the Harrison House in Harrison, Nebraska, and we're very pleased to have them as sponsors. This is my good friend Jim, who I've been sitting here visiting with, and we've decided to talk about the subject of buffalo butchering. Now, that's a topic I know a little bit about. I've done about as many as anybody that's a non-butcher, but Jim was a butcher for many years, and in fact kind of got the buffalo butchering kicked off at Fort Robinson. Is that correct, Jim?
Right, that's what happened
When was that, do you think?
there. Well, that's a date I'm not too familiar with, and none of this stuff is dated. I could guess in 60s, 70s. I'm not sure.
Well, I think if it was when the Margin Vince were out there, it'd probably been in the late 60s.
Yeah, it was after Kirk used to be there.
Uh-huh.
Vince came in after him.
But anyway, they had taken a notion, they got all these buffalo out here, and what the heck, we just supposed to start serving some, huh?
Yeah, they decided to use it in their cafe. And as wild game, they don't have to be inspected like cattle did when they got into.
That's correct. That's still the same as today.
They did try one time to kill a long-horned steer that needed to be butchered, and they couldn't use it as a cafe after because it was a domestic breed.
Yeah.
Or they could sell buffalo, they couldn't sell steer.
Now, as I've said, I've killed and butchered some buffalo myself, and I know it's a little different
Oh yeah, they're a
than
different
cattle.
animal.
What did you find when you were doing it?
Well, I'm kind of a hide man. I like to keep the skin and the hide in good shape, but it was very easy to cut the hide of a buffalo compared to a beef animal.
You can nick it.
They're naked, or they're not as tough as the rest of the animal is, but his skin was easy to slice with a sharp knife. You didn't watch yourself. Other than that, they butchered like a beef.
Now I see you've got a special truck rigged up here.
Yeah, that was something I put together so I could lift the beeves and buffaloes, and they would spread out as I pulled them up on to hook both legs out. This would put them in a spread position so they'd be easy to split.
Absolutely. Yeah, what I found is just getting them off the ground.
Well, yeah,
because you can't typically take them inside of a butcher or locker plant.
After I got them up and butchered, I swung them in the door. I either quartered them in the door, or I laid a tarp in there and drug them in whole carcass and laid them on the floor in there. And that got them to town where I could.
How many you suppose you did a year?
Oh, I don't know. Probably 30,
Holy
35
cow.
in the summer period. That was quite a few of them, but I
Yes,
know at one time
indeed.
I went out, one time was pretty busy, and I wanted a lot of stuff done. I butchered 6 in one day. And that was quite a day. I had a man working with me who did that. Fact is, after I sold the locker plant, Bob Rising took it, and they were still butchering buffalo, and he
Yep.
had me come up on weekends when he went out to buffalo butcher. I ended up butchering buffalo while I was working the railroad. I'd go out with him on a weekend and butcher. That's not when we run into 6. I never butchered that many when I was by myself. But when the two of us were together, we butchered about 6.
Oh gosh, I got to tell you, I've done 1 a day, but I could not think about doing 6 in one day. That's a world record right there, isn't it?
Well,
because you're not doing assembly line stuff, you're doing hook and rail.
With the thing we got to do with we end up butchering them and laying them in the van like cordwood, one side of them on top of the other until we had our butcher done.
So what would you guys do then? Roast, hamburger, obviously. What else would you cut out? Probably not all those.
They used mostly hamburger, but they did save the loin, like the ribeye and the tenderloin.
Tenderloin, sure.
And
did it save the tongue?
And they had to make as many minute steaks they could. That chunks of round or sirloin that was good, they would run through a tenderizer.
Yep.
And they lose a lot of tenderized buffalo steaks that way.
Linda and I bought a tenderizer and did a lot of buffalo that way as well.
Yeah, you could have. it's the one way. They're not that tender an animal really, and they're just straight like grass-fed stuff. And sometimes if they're too hardy, their muscles are tougher than a quiet baby-fed beef in a corral somewhere.
Yeah. Got to cook them low and slow, right?
Yeah, you did.
And the hides, what did you do with the hides? The Ford take them
Well, I
back?
had a market up in Casper, Wyoming, man that had a little tannery, and he took the hides. I used antelope hides, deer hides, and buffalo hides up to him, and he tanned them. And I don't recall where I got very much for them, but it was enough to make a trip. I had several, and then maybe once a year or twice I'd take them up there. I'd usually hold my buffalo hides until game season, and then I'd take a bunch of deer skins
Sure,
and
sure.
antelope and all at one shot.
So did you scrape them?
No,
Did you flesh them, or you just salted them?
I salted them. That's it. Now they got later on. The fort didn't want. They wanted to keep the hides. They wanted to keep the heads. I used to keep the heads too, and I cooked them in a vat for a while to get the flesh off, and I'd sell the skulls. Game Commission decided they better keep their skulls. Before that they didn't, but they started keeping them, so I didn't have any buffalo.
You know, I just did a buffalo skull this spring.
I found another way to do it is bury them in the ground. It was quicker.
Well, you know what? I threw mine in a lick tub, boiled it one session, and then I mixed it in with a bunch of OxyClean,
Oh yeah.
waiting to rate up.
Well, I found this place I sell my buffalo hides to went up with a load of skins, and he had a little buffalo head laying there just whacked off. The hair, hide, and everything on it. It was a big old bull, and I says, "What are you doing with that?" "Well, you wouldn't even have it. Take it out of here. Get it out of here." I threw it in the truck on the way home, and it was stinking. It had some maggots in it. I dug a hole in the backyard and buried it, and 6 months later dug it up as clean as a whistle. It was the best, and the hide, everything is still on when I buried it.
Yes.
So I found it buried something like that in the ground about 2 foot or foot under, so that animals can't dig it back up. I cleaned up several skulls that way after that.
Well, that's
But
a good
burying,
trick.
That's burying them, and the bugs in the ground will take care of it quicker than anything you can do with it. And it's
Buffalo
required-
skull cleaning by
it
Jim
doesn't-
Thompson.
It doesn't require the work of trying to boil them and peel them and treat them and everything. They come out rather brownish color. They're not bright white but you can hang them on the barn and let the sun shine. Like these hot days this summer, you had a skull out there. By fall, it would be white. The brown would come out of it.
Well, Jim, you've got a unique story here for sure, and you know, a lot of people just go out the fort and assume that they've served buffalo forever, and you were right there at the start.
Yeah, they eventually sent their buffalo once a year to Lincoln or somewhere in the modern kill plant, I understand.
Yeah,
And
well, they
still
do a lot
have
up at
buffalo,
Sturgis
but
as well.
But the early days, I did the process, no. And I handed that job over to Bob. The people that owned the locker plant after I left were involved with up till Bob Rising was the last one that butchered it, and then that's when they started shipping them east, as far as I know.
Well, that's amazing. And you worked in the locker plant with your wife, Jim.
Well, she worked with me, and my mother-in-law, her mother worked in there with me too. And I had a man named Frank West that worked quite a few years with the cutting and butchering part of
Was
it.
that Dorothy's husband?
That's Dorothy's husband, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And everybody knows Dorothy, and Frank's been gone for quite a few years, but he was a good hand. He knew how to butcher just like I did. He'd get on one side of a beef and I'd on the other, and we'd side the beef out right away. And I don't know if Frank spent much time with the buffalo butcher, but he did a lot of beef butchering. We did a lot of beef.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's an interesting story for sure. And then you went on from there
Well,
and worked in the railroad, and you were in the Air Force, or was it the Army?
Air Force.
Air Force. Graduated here from town, born here in town.
Yeah, I never really left. I worked the railroad out of town and traveled back and forth to Lusk, Wyoming for years. I spent off and on 22 years off and on working railroad till I finally retired.
Sure. Well, that's all right. Well, listen, we're going to wrap it up for today.
All right.
And we'll be back. Certainly, you've got a lot of stories to tell.
I got a few left in my mind to keep up with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can
We've
make anything up you want.
Oh, ain't it the truth? Yeah, I've always said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. That's
There
what
you
this
go.
show is about.
There you
And
go.
I can see we're going to have to get you in the middle of this, and we'll have a lion contest right here.
There you go. She'll throw out things in.
But Jim, I got to tell you, I've so enjoyed this tale today. A part of the history that I bet you not many people know, and I'm so glad we were able to get it preserved here for us today.
Okay, thank you.
She,
Well, we're going to wrap up with Never Let the Truth Get in the Way of a Good Story. Again, today's show is brought to you by the Harrison House in Harrison, Nebraska. And Jim, I want to thank you again.
You bet.
We've been here with Jim Thomas and talking about butchering buffalo for the first time out at Fort Robinson. Thank you very much.
You bet.